Since time began, mankind has sought the answers to life's greatest questions. It is a burning desire that has driven both nations and individuals to consume and conquer all frontiers set before them in a search for ultimate meaning. The quest for answers has taken the human race to the very ends of the earth and beyond. Yet, despite our greatest achievements, there remains one as yet unconquered final frontier: death and the life beyond. And it is this frontier that holds perhaps the true answer to all life's mysteries.
Sir, can you hear me? Orderly, get the antitoxins ready. Sir, can you hear me?
That's impossible.
It's medically inexplicable.
Hello, I'm Ron Bailey. Welcome to the Lazarus Phenomenon, the program where we seek to answer that one most intriguing question: is there really life after death? Every person has probably asked that question at least once in his or her lifetime. Do we cease to exist the day we exhale our last breath? Or is there more to it than that? In this program, we'll be talking to experts in both the medical and the scientific fields, as well as to people who've literally been to hell and back and experienced a heaven beyond their wildest dreams. So join us, if you dare, as we enter into the Lazarus Phenomenon. Where do we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going? Is our existence on Earth merely a product of chance, a random act of cosmic coincidence, or is there really another world beyond the seeing eye? Since earliest times, most cultures have displayed a belief in life after death. The ancient Egyptians believed that when they died, they too would make a journey to another world, where they would lead a new life. They consequently paid vast amounts of money to have their bodies properly preserved, as they believed they would undergo various tests on the other side. Similar beliefs can be traced back to the great civilizations of Greece and Rome, and various cultures as far afield as the Mayans and Incas of South and Central America, the Khoisan of Southern Africa, and the Aboriginal peoples of Australia. In later times, particularly in the Middle Ages, life was dominated by a fear of demons and the terror of damnation. Throughout the ages, poets and writers voiced their own interpretations of the teachings of Jesus and what the biblical authors had written of heaven and hell. One particular story, related by Jesus himself, was of the rich man and Lazarus.
There was a certain rich man clothed in purple and fine linen. And there was a beggar named Lazarus who laid at his gate full of sores, and desired it so to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. And so it was that the beggar died and was carried by the angels unto Abraham's bosom. Now the rich man fared sumptuously every day, feasting and dining to his delight. But it came to pass that he too died and awoke in Hades. And while in torment, he looked up and saw Lazarus and Abraham afar off.
Father Abraham, have mercy upon me. Send Lazarus to dip his finger in water and cool my tongue. I am in agony in this fire.
My friend, remember that while you lived, you had everything good, and Lazarus everything bad. Now he is at peace, and it's you who are in pain. And besides, there's this great chasm between us that no one can cross over.
Abraham, please send Lazarus to my father's house. I have 5 brothers. Do not let them come to this terrible place.
Your brothers can read what Moses and the prophets wrote. That's what they should pay attention to.
It's not enough. If someone from the dead were to go to them and tell them, they would turn to God.
If they won't pay attention to Moses and the prophets, they won't even listen to someone who comes back from the dead.
But is this belief, this seemingly universal human instinct, merely the product of superstition and religious doctrines? Or is there actual scientific evidence to support it? Today, scholars and religious figures are certainly divided. Some talk of reincarnation, others of assimilation into the universal life force. Nobody knows for sure, or do they? Towards the end of the 20th century, a phenomena arose in which people reported near-death experiences, otherwise known as NDEs, in which they encountered some form of afterlife reality. Modern medicine began referring to these occurrences as the Lazarus Phenomenon, after another biblical character, also named Lazarus, who was revived by Jesus 4 days after his supposed death. But just what is near-death experience? Dr. Jeff Long elaborates.
Well, as the name near-death experience implies, these people have some event in which they are severely physically compromised. Generally, there's a severe physical malady that occurs very suddenly often or at the end of a chronic illness. Near-death experiences are very frequently associated with cessation of heart function or cessation of breathing function, and very often both. And given that 10 seconds after that the EEG, a measure of brain electrical activity, goes absolutely flat, it's medically inexplicable that near-death experiencers are having a conscious experience. There's so much more evidence behind something more going on with near-death experiences, something that is not medically explicable. There are blind people, including people that are blind from birth, that have near-death experiences, and for most of them it's a visual experience. That is absolutely medically inexplicable. These are people that are blind that for the first experience in their life where they've had vision and can see things in the world was during their near-death experience. There is no other explanation for that. Time and time again we hear accounts of people that had their near-death experience and their consciousness separates from their body. So from a vantage point of their consciousness apart from their body, they're able to see and hear what's going on around them while they're being resuscitated. Very often they can see incredible detail of the events going on around them. Out of all the near-death experiencers that I've studied that had their consciousness come apart from their body and where they were seeing earthly everyday events, essentially all of them, what they describe, has been absolutely plausible, and of all the near-death experiencers I've seen who actually went and sought out verification of what they saw while their consciousness was apart from the body, every single time, with only one exception, what they saw was or heard was absolutely correct. And there is no explanation for that, for consciousness apart from the body at the time you're having a cardiopulmonary arrest. To people that think that near-death experience is not legitimate, I would remind them that there's at least 12 to 15 million Americans that have had near-death experience. This is such an enormous number of a shared experience that so greatly affects their life that no matter what the cause of near-death experience, no matter what your ideas about why it occurs, I think there's no question, given the number of lives that it's impacted, that it makes sense to study it. It's an incredible phenomenon, and again, the implications are enormous.
A medical practitioner who has experienced this firsthand is Dr. Melvin Morse of Seattle's prestigious Children's Hospital.
The near-death experience is, in fact, the dying experience. We will all have this experience when we die. The interpretation of the experience is in dispute. Nevertheless, it's a scientific fact, not a belief system, that we will have this experience when we die. There have been 3 major scientific studies of near-death experiences in the last 15 years. And all 3 of these studies document that these experiences are real and they'll happen to us all when we die. So the old ideas that these experiences are caused by a lack of oxygen to the brain, or are hallucinations caused by chaos in the brain at the point of death, are caused by the drugs that are given to patients that we resuscitate when we're dying, those ideas were, of course, respectable scientific theories, but turned out to not be true. In fact, near-death experiences are the dying experience. And that's a scientific fact, not an opinion.
I think in terms, yes, certainly in terms of the consistency of the testimonies in near-death experiences, it suggests that the experience is a reality which is not purely the product of brain chemicals, because, I mean, we know from studies of the effects of drugs ordinarily that if you give one person a drug and then give the same drug to another person, they'll have 2 completely different experiences. There might be broad similarities, but not the level of consistency you find with a near-death experience.
Science cannot give us the definitive answers to our questions about the afterlife. Not yet. Until it can,